Well, there we are, a standing ovation for the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, who has spoken to both houses of Parliament on his first day of the state visit to the UK. He talked, first of all, about what an honour it was to speak in this place of history and democracy, he said. He talked of the two world wars, about honouring the fallen of both countries. French people will never forget sacrifice, will never forget the support. Churchill was a visionary, he said. He passed on a world order. Churchill passed on a world order that is under attack now with the floutering of international rules by destabilising powers. He then said that the UK and France must show that our alliance can make all the difference and protect the international order. First, in supporting Ukraine, which leads, and the support for Ukraine, which leads to a robust peace. Together we work hard to stand with Ukraine, he said. Putin must know we will never abandon Ukraine. On the Middle East, he called for the release of hostages, the end of suffering for Gazans. He said the solution is the recognition of a state of Palestine. The only way to build peace is a two-state solution, he said. And then a big part of the speech about security. Our two countries have responsibility for the security of Europe, he said. We have to work together, shoulder to shoulder. And then he said this about the trade wars and what's going on and the tariffs. He said, if we want to build a sustainable future, we must work to be strong, not dependent. We must remove excessive dependency on the US and China, he said. And then thanked, he said he was the first European head of state to make a state visit since Brexit, and he recognised the importance of that. Our political correspondent, Tamara Cohen, is there, has been listening to the French president. Tamara, what did you make of it? It's interesting he spoke about migration, this key political issue, saying that we have to get tangible results on this crucial issue. Our objective must be to fix what is a burden for both countries.
That's right. I thought it was very much a speech of the past and the present. Emmanuel Macron saying that he was the first European leader to address both houses of parliament since the UK left the EU, and that significance was not lost on him. And he made a strong plea for closer ties. He said that Keir Starmer had done a lot to rebuild trust with Europe since, and he didn't go into detail, but since clearly what he's thinking of the dark days of those Brexit texts and lots of animosity. He said that the two countries' relationship is back on track and now in a new phase. And after, of course, dwelling on the hundreds of years of history, Britain and France fighting side by side in the Second World War, and he and Keir Starmer will shortly be visiting the statue of Winston Churchill in Parliament Square, he said that that world order that they fought for is now under threat again. There was a really interesting passage where he talked about how it's being attacked on a daily basis, with direct attacks on our democracies, the return of war on our continent, and the resurgence of imperial impulses and the flouting of international rules by destabilising powers. He talked about Britain and France being at the forefront of pushing for greater defence spending to counter those threats. But he also talked about working together on the domestic issues which concern both of them. Migration, he said it had a heavy burden on both our countries and was willing to work together. We don't actually think that an agreement is ready to be unveiled on migration. There are talks about what it could look like, but it doesn't look like there will be much beyond, at this stage, a pilot agreement announced tomorrow when he meets Keir Starmer in Downing Street. He also talked about the threats coming from social media, but there was an interesting bit about how he sees the future of Europe. He said that there was a risk with the end of free movement, that he said young people in both countries, in France and the UK, could become strangers. And you'll remember that when Keir Starmer announced his EU reset only a few weeks ago, he talked about setting up a programme for young people to be able to move more freely between the UK and European countries. Emmanuel Macron said that's what he wanted to see in lots of areas of life, so there could be genuine exchange of ideas. So that contributes to the debate there, with the government, of course, keen to make that sound as limited as possible. So he is pushing on that. I also thought there was an interesting line there he had about the need to recognise a Palestinian state. Emmanuel Macron has very much been the forefront of that as the answer to the conflict in Gaza. The British government is in favour of a two-state solution, but they've said they're not sure now is the right time for that recognition, and it may bring more questions than it answers or not end the conflict at all. So that is going to clearly be a focus of their talks tomorrow, which will be interesting as Emmanuel Macron is trying to organise a UN summit about this issue of recognition. But I thought the theme of the whole speech was very much, he said, Britain and France, two countries who he said will save Europe with our example and our solidarity, and saying that this is a new phase in the future for closer ties in a range of important areas, including on the economy, given the threat of tariffs and so many other challenges that both countries face.
So very briefly, he's off back to Windsor Castle, and he's speaking again at a banquet this evening. Is that right?
That's right. They're going to see Churchill's statue. They're going to see the statue of Charles de Gaulle, which is near the Foreign Office, just round the corner from where we are in Parliament now. They're going to have a white tie state dinner tonight that Keir Starmer and his wife will be attending with King Charles. And then this is all taking place at Windsor Castle. And then tomorrow, the sort of political bit of the trip starts, where there will be this UK-France summit in Downing Street, and meetings around the nitty-gritty of what's being agreed on migration. So today has been very much the day for tradition, with King Charles and the Queen, and this address to Parliament dwelling on the hundreds of years of history, this announcement about the Bayeux Tapestry coming to the British Museum next year, which is obviously going to be a huge event for London. And then tomorrow the political bit starts. We believe he's also meeting with Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, and Ed Davey, the Lib Dem leader as well, which leaders do often do on a state visit. They meet other party leaders. Interestingly, not Nigel Farage, who appears to have not been invited. So Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron very much seeing themselves as leading, not just on issues like migration, but also on this effort to set up a coalition of the willing, and they will be talking about that tomorrow. They're going to be joining a virtual meeting of that tomorrow. OK, Tamara, many thanks for that.